legendary Wahoo, my friend, and Renaissance man, Tiki Barber. Welcome to the Fishbowl.
I appreciate it.
Wahoo
Wah.
Wahoo Wah, you're my first guest.
Oh,
so
I love that. You better have a Wahoo number one.
I know, exactly. We got the good stuff front loaded, but I mentioned you being a Renaissance man. You do marathons now. You're on TV, but probably the thing you're most famous for right now is Broadway.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, to me, that's the most remarkable shit about your entire journey. Is like, there's nothing more terrifying to me than Broadway.
But it started a long time ago.
How did that happen?
I lived in the city when I was playing. Most of the guys who play for the Giants, they live in Jersey. Either they're scared of traffic or the city can be intimidating. New York City can be intimidating. But I took the plunge and I moved in. And as a result, I started meeting like so many different people, whether it was CEOs of companies or artists or actors or whatever it may be. And I got asked to do this off Broadway show called Seeing Double. It was the original. It was a set of twins who were writing their story. And I did it. And I was nervous. It was in a tiny cafe and it was unique, but it was cool.
Yeah.
A couple years later, I realized that I wanted to dabble in Broadway. In Broadway and acting. And so I took an acting class, right? And so I go meet this woman. Her name is Peggy Lewis. She teaches kids, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids,
right?
And me. And so here I am doing some reads with kids,
right.
And it was nerve-wracking, but it taught me a lot about projecting and presenting myself, which I think, interestingly, helped me become a broadcaster.
No doubt about it.
She decided she wanted to produce a play, and the show was Women of Manhattan by John Patrick Shanley. People know him from Moonstruck, and she wanted me to play this character named Duke, and my role was to be this 60s-born, civil rights era raised African American who had become successful in New York City and only dated white women. And I had to have this attitude, but this suaveness.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was hard to find the motivation.
Right.
But I loved it. And man, I could do this, man. I want to be an actor. But then football got in the way. I started to get really
football
good.
gets in the way of a lot of stuff.
It does. It really does.
But related to football, the way I think about it is nothing more terrifying than getting outside of your comfort zone. And maybe for you that was a bit of a comfort zone, but you're entering an arena where people have worked their whole lives to get these roles.
That's exactly right.
And I wondered if you at times were cognizant of the fact that some people might hold shit against you or have preconceived notions about you. Did you get any static from the industry folks?
So let me fast forward to the Kinky Boots opportunity. So having had that knowledge, having had the desire to do Broadway, but never doing it, because football, I got good at football, which is not a bad thing, but it got in the way. 15 years later, I get asked to be a fill-in in Kinky Boots. So Don is the character that I was asked to play, played by this guy, Danny Sherman, who was taking a break. He was going to be gone for 6 weeks. And so they asked, would you be interested? Absolutely, I'd be interested. I'll just go check it out. But then I started thinking about exactly what you're talking about, right? I'm just a celebrity filling in. I haven't earned the stripes. But I think what I found really quickly is that a lot of these actors, not most of them, a lot of them were football fans. Right? So they knew me, they knew about me. And so there was this familiarity that made it comfortable. And they accepted me and just said, okay, let's get to work. Let's figure out how we can make this happen. And at the end of the day, it was one of the most fulfilling and exciting experiences I ever could imagine. Because being on a stage again, but without a helmet this time and kind of being vulnerable was thrilling.
More nervous than a football game,
Yeah.
I'd assume, because one, it's not what you do, and two, the way I look at delivering lines or being on live TV or theater, is it's not like football where you fumble, you get another shot.
And you're protected.
The play is 3-4 seconds long.
And you're protected.
You're Tiki Barber, you're gonna get your carries.
Yeah.
You're Tiki Barber on stage and you fuck a line up.
Yep.
What happens?
You're right.
Did you fuck anything up? And how do you get over the hump?
The parallel is this. Chris Long could completely blow an assignment against the Redskins. 95% of the people have no idea.
Got no clue.
No idea. if Tiki Barber, as Dawn in Kinky Boots, blows the line or crosses incorrectly, and this did happen, then everybody sees it.
What's crossing indirectly?
So I wasn't really worried about memorizing the lines. Yeah. Maybe acting the lines was a little bit worrisome, but it's a lot of blocking, which is how to go from point A to point B, what you have to do in the interim, pull a stage, take a prop, or whatever it may be. So the blocking is as integral as the dialogue in a lot of Broadway shows. It's the art of live theater. Mm-hmm. And so there's this moment in the first act where I'm sitting down at my workstation, and Charlie comes down the stairs and he's singing, and I'm like, what the heck are you doing? And I get up and I stare at him. I cross in front of my workstation. I come back. He pushes me out of the way, and he goes and takes my workstation because he's creating a boot now.
Right.
It's Kinky Boots. Instead of shoes, he's creating a boot, and he pulls out this boot and then he walks down stage. And so my job is to look at him confused. What the hell? What's he doing? As soon as he crosses back upstage, I take the machine and move it off stage, and the show continues. So what happens is he moves me out of the way. He gets the boot, right? He takes it and he's like, yes, Kinky Boots. He walks down stage, and then I walk to take the machine, not waiting for him to cross. And he's not even looking, right? Because he's just like, turns and runs back, right? He goes, he turns and runs right into me. And I'm like, oh.
Oh, shit, dude.
Luckily, he kept going. And I was like, what are you, like, I played it off like, what are you doing? You're in my way. Yeah. And so
so you have a little,
it
like,
worked.
you fuck up, you have a little flexibility where you can
right.
ad lib.
You're right.
I mean, like,
it takes good, so this is the teammate side of it. It takes a camaraderie. You don't think of it that way, but it does. So he hit me, I hit him. He kept going. We looked at each other like, get out of my way. And you don't really notice it.
Right.
The same thing happened with Lola, who was the lead character, the cross-dresser or a transvestite, who a drag queen they call in the show. I lost the line, so I'm just staring at him, Callum, and he was great. And it's my turn to say something, and I'm lost. I'm like, what is this line? And so he saved me, because he said my line and then said his line. I'm supposed to say, you like women? And he says, I adore them. And so I'm standing there like, I'm supposed to say something, but I don't know what I'm supposed to say. And he says, of course I like women. Yeah. I adore them. So he said my line and then said his line, and we were able to keep moving through.
So if you don't get bailed out, I guess the thing...
That never happened.
The thing for me is like, and people are going to take care of you because you're new. But I think about like the grind of that thing, like, comparing it to football, you're going 6 weeks, you're probably going 4 or 5 nights a week. The 6 nights a week, mental grind, as opposed to football, there's one contest a week. Yeah. The physical grind, obviously not comparable, but
it was hard.
What about getting motherfucked? Like, because on the field, you've had some tough coaches. I mean, you had Fossil and Coughlin and those guys, but like, how hard is the coaching?
The coaching takes place all before. And after you're in performance, after I've made my debut, it's all subtle. It's like, try this, right? Don't say, you can't fire me, because that's putting the emphasis on me and it's making it antagonistic. You gotta say, you can't fire me.
Right.
So it's dismissive. Like, you're trying to fire me, but I'm dismissing you. And that's the joke. And so understanding how dialogue works was one of the hardest things for me to get, because you just want to read a line, but in actuality you have to put emotion into it.
Do you watch film? Because to me, like when you're playing ball, I might think I have a great game.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? How the film when you play is always never as good as you think and never as bad as you think, which is the old adage.
You're right.
But I figure when you're in theater, it's probably the same thing.
It is, but it's mostly notes. So the film isn't there. I watched a lot of film of Danny, the original Don, doing the role, because he's perfectly suited for it. He'd done it so many times. He was in the cast for six years, and so watching him perform every scene informed me on how I'm supposed to do it. But the challenge was, Danny is a 265-pound white guy, and here I am, this 190-pound.
You're not a 265-pound white dude.
Black guy trying to play the same role.
Yeah.
And so it's different because the dialogue is suited for his body type.
Maybe
and
I
not
should.
mine.
Maybe I should have played
I
the.
mean,
You said
could've.
265. I'm a little light
Yeah,
right now.
but he has like a belly.
Yeah, okay, so he's-
like there's a scene where they're talking about the difference between the boxing match between me and Lola, and one of the characters says, well, you're not half the man Don is, and it's like a catch line,
Right.
and the girl and the other girl says, oh, you can say that again because
Right.
he's twice the size of Lola. It didn't work with me, so it was kind of like a toss off.
Yeah. I want to fast forward to UVA because that's the one thing we have in common. I mean, I'm not very theatric or talented outside of football.
You never know, dude.
You never know.
You
But
never know.
UVA, I mean, the last time I saw you was the Natty,
Yeah.
which for people at home who don't watch the greatest athletic program in the country on a regular basis, we're the champs. You know, that was a lot of fun. You know, talking UVA history. There's actually a historical basketball landmark that's being torn down this week. I don't know if you know.
I did not know
So
that.
my UVA name drop right here is Ralph texted me, Sampson,
Okay.
Ralph, my
Yeah.
boy, you know?
Of course. I mean,
Who it's
you're
super
a
awkward.
townie. And
It's
he's always
I'm
in
the townie.
Charlottesville.
So it's super awkward to stand next to Ralph, but because he's twice my height. But they're tearing down U-Haul this weekend. Crazy. I mean, a historical marker in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Any aerial shot of Charlottesville, the first thing you look for is U-Haul.
That's right.
So it's going away, and it was really expensive because they had to tear all the asbestos out and all that stuff. So they're drinking beer and having cocktails and throwing a party Friday. But when I think about history in UVA athletics, I think about your team.
Yeah.
Like when I think about the glory days of UVA sports, obviously football leads from the front. No matter what we do in other sports, people judge an athletic program by basketball and football. And your teams were tremendous. I mean, Ferrier, Sharper,
Yeah,
the Barbers,
Yeah.
Kearney, one of my favorites. And to me, the guy that people outside of Charlottesville have no idea about is Anthony Poindexter.
That's right. Because he didn't get his chance.
He didn't get his shot.
to do it nationally.
And I wonder how good of a pro he would have been, because I know who were the best pros.
That's right.
But I thought he was as good a college player as anybody there.
Like so we all in that era kind of made our name by beating Florida State in 1995.
Did Dunn get in?
He did not get in, and a lot of people credit Anthony Poindexter with making the stop. Now, Anthony, it was a direct snap to Warwick Dunn. You have one play left, what do? Direct snap to Warwick Dunn, who was one of the best players in college football at the time. And it was the right call.
Yeah.
Anthony is there to make the tackle. Poindexter is there to make the tackle. But the real savior for us was Adrian Burnham, who
Yeah.
was the backside safety. So Adrian Burnham comes over the top, and instead of trying to help on the tackle, he punches at the ball. So Poindexter's got the tackle, AB comes across and punches at the ball. And if you watch, Warwick has the ball up here. Adrian Burnham hits the ball, it falls back.
Right.
So when he hits the ground, the ball actually never crosses the goal line.
He can't
and so
reach.
every time I see Warwick Dunn, he's like, I scored. I'm like, dude, you didn't score.
No,
the ball never crossed the goal line. But you bring up Anthony. Anthony was a kid who was a stud. He was everywhere on the field. He was a ball hawk, but he was a pounder in the box as well. We thought that Anthony should come out.
Right.
He decided to stay and play another year under Coach Welsh.
And I remember he counseled me. I mean, because I got my first round grade back as low first round, high second round.
Yep.
And I was really thinking about coming out. But I really loved UVA. And you know, the dilemma is like,
Right.
you want to finish,
course.
it's in your blood. And Dex said, if you stay, I wouldn't say a word about it because I don't regret a thing. And I can remember being a kid. I used to sit up on the hill when y'all were playing. I was probably 12 years old. I would sneak off the hill and do bad shit, you know, up by dorms.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember when I got back, my favorite player was out for the game.
Yeah.
It was NC State.
I never went to games because I was busy.
Right.
I was playing. I was in the
Right.
NFL. My Saturdays weren't free to go down to Charlottesville.
Right.
The one that I went back to in the 5 or 6 years that it crossed over with Poindexter was that NC State game.
Were you on the hill with me?
No, I was sitting in
in a
the
box.
what was the name of our mess hall where we ate?
Oh,
What would they call it?
they still call it something. I can't remember.
I can't remember. Whatever. So we're in that box right above the end zone, watching down over the crowd in the end zone, and Anthony was doing something he never, ever, ever, ever does, which is stand around the pile. He's always diving into the pile or making a hit or being aggressive with somebody. The play ends. He's just standing at the end of the pile. Someone falls over it, and you see his knee go down.
So the hot button issue right now is amateurism, and it's guys leaving earlier, protecting themselves and leaving in their senior year. I mean, Bosa opting out of the rest of his year. The cat from Georgia, Fournette with bowl games.
Even Christian McCaffrey didn't play in his bowl game.
McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And I've got some mixed feelings about it, because part of me is always like, it depends on the bowl game, right? If you're in the Papa John's like Baton Rouge Bowl,
the Poulon Weed Eater Bowl,
like the one I went to. If these bowls are like have 3 brands attached to them, you should probably skip that one if you're a first round pick. But I understand where people come from and say it is a slippery slope, and if you're playing in the playoff, which I would hope eventually gets expanded, I would hope to be out there with your brothers.
I would as well. It's very complicated, Chris, because the economics have changed significantly. Even in the 15, or actually now 22 years that I've been out of college, it was not even a conversation when I was a senior, 4th year at UVA. Nobody thought about sitting out to protect against injury, or I could do some damage to my earning potential if XYZ occurs.
Yeah.
That wasn't even on the forefront of people's minds. But I think the money has gotten so big, and it's life-changing. All right, some of these contracts, if you are a first-round pick,
especially the old CBA,
exactly, then I get it. I understand why they do it. You have to maximize your earning potential.
I'm never going to knock a guy
Me either.
who looks out for number one.
Me either.
Because no one else in football is looking out for number one. Not at the college level and not at the pro level.
Well, we know what's happening also from the economic standpoint from the NCAA. It's a $1 billion business right now. And the athletes, regardless of their talent, their contributions to the NCAA's bottom line and the organization's bottom line, are not compensated.
Right.
Now, I know that they're getting into this name, brand, and likeness issue.
That should be the bare minimum.
Of course. If you and I were musicians, and the I don't know, the German whatever orchestra decided to have us come over and play, they would pay us to go do it, right?
Yep.
If we were great at it.
If I was on a painting or an art scholarship and I wanted to sell my paintings, and I don't know if it's a clean analogy, I know it's contentious, but one of the things that annoys me is it's always when you bring it up, people are like, well, you can't pay college athletes, they're already getting a scholarship.
Yeah.
So what you're admitting,
value of attendance.
You're admitting though that there is compensation.
Yeah.
So you've argued against yourself.
That's right.
Because if you truly wanted amateurism, you would not have kids on scholarship, and your teams would be filled with cats that are walk-ons, and that probably had no interest in going to school.
That's right.
So you've admitted that there is a value.
Right. There certainly is a value, and I think as players, and this is regardless of sport. This could be a swimmer.
Yeah.
This could be a mogul skier. Starts to develop a national, and even more importantly, local brand. That's valuable. Right. So we tend to look at, Zion Williamson could have gotten a Nike deal and made $100 million when he was in college. That would have been inequitable and felt like an improper benefit. But a mogul skier like Jeremy Bloom, and we forget this example where he sued the NCAA because they took his eligibility because he was a mogul skier and got paid by sponsors. He couldn't play football anymore at the University of Colorado. Right. He ended up losing that one, obviously, but it makes no sense, right? He was great at what he was doing. He was a very good football player, but he was great as a mogul skier. He's nationally famous. And he can't be compensated, even though it has nothing to do with the amateurism or an improper benefit for playing football. And so I think it stifles the pursuit of excellence. Yep. And there's no incentive to be great. Even though getting to the next level and being professional is that incentive, but there is no incentive to be great right now. And it's interesting, and that's why I think we see guys like Jadeveon Clowney who says, you know what, I know I'm going to get drafted in the first round.
Right.
I don't have an incentive to be great for the University of South Carolina.
Exactly.
Right? I have an incentive to be great in the NFL because I will be fairly compensated once I get to the National Football League. So I can't fault kids not wanting to play. I can't fault Nick Bosa. I can't fault Christian McCaffrey or Leonard Fournette for sitting out of the bowl game because they're not incentivized to do it. I'm not talking about getting paid, right? Because the big schools could pay more than the little schools. But if they develop a brand.
But how does that work in basketball? I mean, like the big schools aren't guaranteed to win in basketball, and they're paying their players anyways.
But think of Ja Morant, who's going to be a lottery pick this year. Nobody knew who the hell he was outside of where he was. Right? You don't think that at a local, I don't know, sporting goods store, whatever it may be, he couldn't sit down and sign autographs for 2 hours and make $5 grand.
What's the problem there?
There is no
There's
problem.
guys who are feeding their families.
He's locally famous. Right? We want to look at the national, like he's nationally famous, he's going to get this $100 million. No. He's local fame, right, is where it's at. And if you allow kids to monetize where they are incentivized, right, to stay and be there. And so the problem is complex and it's complicated because there's always boosters, there's always those nefarious
They didn't have those at UVA.
I know, right?
I never got a single dollar. I mean, not even offered.
But they exist.
Yeah.
We know it exists.
Yeah.
But we also have to realize that it's capitalism, right? Cheating happens. It's capitalism.
The biggest pro-market people in the country, free markets. We're all about it, right? We're about democracy, the Constitution, free market capitalism, but not for that 19-year-old kid who's paying these billionaires.
You're right.
And I think one thing they could do, I mean, we talk about bare minimums, we talk about the likeness. I think insurance policies are great. The NCAA could carry insurance policies. And I think another thing guys can do, you talk about local, the other end of the spectrum is they could go international. And I think more guys you'll see playing overseas rather than like, why would I go to Maryland?
That's right.
I picked the school I hate.
And they're no longer in the ACC.
Yeah, they're not in the ACC. We got rid of them, but why would I go to Maryland per se and just get some questionable coaching possibly, not learn the pro game, when I can go overseas, be compensated, and learn?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the NCAA's got a whole host of issues, I think.
They're starting to think about it the right way, and that's the good thing. The challenge, and this is the biggest challenge, they're going to have to decide whether their financial interests outweigh the financial interest of the student athlete. The answer is going to be yes. But we know what it should be. Who
looks greedier, the NFL or the NCAA on a regular basis?
Well, the NFL, it's got to be the NCAA.
I agree.
Right?
And that's not to say the NFL's all. They have a whole host of issues. One of which you're involved in, which I really wanted to talk about, is your investment in cannabis and the stigma that goes with the NFL. And I think that should be, along with a lot of the healthcare issues and some of the other issues with guaranteed money, I think we're going to see more and more more about that. You want to tell me about what you got, what's cooking?
I got approached by an entrepreneur. His name was Kevin Shin, and he was starting a group called Grove Group Management. And he asked me to come on and be a founding partner. Part of it was because of the social injustices that we see from the war on drugs, the history of the war on drugs. We all know this back in the 70s. It's a racist policy, and it's still affecting minority communities across this country. So part of the reason was to help change that. We know that in 33 states, it's medicinally available. I think it's 11 now. It's recreationally available, and there's an economic boom that's coming. And so it makes sense to start a business. That's why we started and founded Grove Group Management. But along the same lines, you start thinking about all of the athletes that you and I know, football, basketball, everything, that have partaken in the smoking of weed. And for a long time...
I haven't smoked today. So.
But for a long time, and you can probably co-sign this, I thought of it as, man, you just want to get high, right? It's easy. You don't have time to go have 6 vodka tonics, right? You just want to get high. You want to feel good. But as you really think about it, and I only started to think about it this way when I found adults and business executives and people in everyday walks of America who also are smoking marijuana.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so you start asking yourself, well, why? Why are you? And you're 50 years old. Why are you toking up in the, on the front porch?
Right.
And what you realize is that they're self-medicating for whatever reason, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, for athletes. Insomnia for athletes, it's pain.
Yeah.
Right? And you're starting to see an awakening happening with athletes. Who was it, David Irving with the Dallas Cowboys? Said, look, I'm done. I have pain. I don't want to take opioids.
Right.
I don't want my liver destroyed.
I mean, you've got Eugene. I'm going to take the opioids and I'm going to smoke because I need them on Sunday. I mean, I'm on the Toradol train every Sunday.
And think about
that. And it's less about pain.
But think about what that's doing.
But
to
I'm
you.
stopping now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
when I'm done
retiring.
playing. Well, we'll see. When I'm done playing, I'm not going to need the pain management because I've been smart about my body. But I can imagine certain guys that it is just a much more viable option, and there's CBD, and there's a ton of ways to ingest marijuana now. It's not like you have to sit on the corner with a blunt or a joint.
It's true.
You know, and stink up the room. But I think in athletics, I mean, I know personally, like, listen, I've smoked most of my career. I mean, that just is what it is. I've used it for insomnia. Since I started smoking as a professional, I don't touch sleeping pills.
Yeah.
I don't touch painkillers. I use it for anxiety, you know, in situations that I'm going to be
You're the
uncomfortable.
test case. You're asking me the question.
Well, I'm saying,
you're the example.
Here I am.
And you're not atypical.
Well, here and no.
I'm not talking about this.
And I'm not dry snitching because, like, you know, you walk the line where you're like, I don't want to say like 70% of the league smokes or whatever. Like a percentage of the league smokes.
You're right.
And for me, there's no better illustration than when that arbitrary ass test once a year just to cover the NFL's ass, which, by the way, starts 420 is when you can start getting tested.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that when they hear about random drug testing, random is for PEDs.
Yes.
Once a year, we have a window where we can smoke. And by the way, the D-line always has to wait till the last test, right before camp. So all the quarterbacks and stuff, I think it's fixed.
Of course it is.
Because they don't smoke, probably. But the guys that really need it, who are in pain or who are a little bit different, they got to wait till camp. But in those months that I can't smoke, stopping 30 days before or whatever, the pill bottles come back out.
Yeah.
The sleeping pills come back out.
You're right.
I drink more on the weekends.
And think about that option, right? Think about how hard it is to come down from a game.
Yep.
I mean,
I can't sleep.
I remember having to go. I used to take my linemen out. We'd go to this restaurant called Premola on the Upper East Side, and be like 10 of us walking in at 11 o'clock at night, drinking bottles of wine, just trying to like come down.
Yep. There's a better way.
From the game. There's a significantly better way. And guess what? There's a chance you can genetically modify it so that it's right for me.
Yeah.
Specifically right for me. And so.
And that's what regulating it does. And that's what responsibly, you know, like you're talking about also responsibly growing a business and removing the stigma that was created with the war on drugs, which, by the way, when the war on drugs started, drug use was on decline.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's a disaster. And it's something we're grappling with the NFL. Another thing the NFL is grappling with is gambling.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me because, you know, it's getting less stigmatized. It's always been a dirty secret.
Well, it's been there. It's always around. Look, I do a radio show with Brandon Tierney, and BT is.
I've been on, bro.
Of course, you know this. I'm just saying for your audience. BT, I call him Sharp Tierney. That's his nickname.
Yeah.
Like he honestly could be a line setter.
Yeah.
He just knows these things. In fact, when UVA was playing Gardner Webb in the first round of the NCAA this year, and they were down by 14, he looked up at the score and was like, you guys don't have to worry. You're going to win by 15. They won by fucking 15.
I know.
I'm like, how the hell do you know that?
These people are insane. And Vegas knows.
But his mind works like that.
Yeah.
He's not atypical from a lot of America who watches sports, some for entertainment, but if they're not particular fans of a game or a sport, it sucks them in. And so it's imperative, I think, because we're a distracted society now. You have to have other incentives to get people to watch, and gambling, legalized gambling, is a way to do that. And so I was listening to this podcast, and I forgot who it was, talking about Russell Wilson and his agent, who's a baseball agent. And the reason that it potentially was going to get contentious is because Russell Wilson wanted his compensation tied to the overall growth of the cap. Right? And you're like, well, why would he want to do that? The cap goes up. Yeah, I know it goes up $10 million a year, every year, at least over the last 3 or 4 years. It's going to be $200 million before you know it, because gambling money is going to be a league revenue soon. And so Russell Wilson knows by the time he retires in 6 or 7 years, the cap's going to be like $280 million. And so he's smart. They were smartly thinking about it. And the leagues are starting to realize the incentive to cheat, meaning have a gambler influence an athlete, is too risky for the player. Right? If you get caught doing that, your economic compensation is gone forever.
One thing that's interesting about like athletes and gambling is I've never been approached about gambling like from an outside, and that's crazy. You carry the ball. I mean, like for me, I can only do so much.
I could have specifically influenced the outcome of a game.
And in New York, which is a sketchy ass city, it's a wonderful city, but there's sketchy shit going on. That never happened. So it's interesting. And another thing is like athletes need to beware, because I think sometimes we think that after football or betting on another sport, that because we're athletes, we know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
to your point, your guy is a sharp.
Yeah.
And you're not thinking like an athlete. That's why athletes make bad gamblers.
That's right. That's why they make bad fantasy football players and everything else, because they feel like they know what's going to happen because they did it.
That hit close to home. My fantasy basketball team has not made the playoffs for 8 years running. It's dog shit.
I finally won my fantasy football league. Football, I know,
but it's funny. We do a whole fan where we do brackets.
Yeah.
You know, my bracket is a dumpster fire every year. The only way it was saved this year was Virginia.
Yep.
Me and my high school buddies do this long list of brackets, and my wife, I let her in, and she wins almost every year, and she's like just arbitrarily picking.
Because she's agnostic.
She's agnostic.
She's not emotionally connected.
Yep. So I want to get to the Giants because obviously you are one of the best Giants of all time, and in my opinion, one of the most underrated players in general of all time.
That.
No, I mean, because you talk about a guy that holds 22 franchise records. That's insane.
Yeah.
And you also went out on top, which is wild. I mean, you had 2,200 all-purpose yards your last year.
That's right.
I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Did you know that you were going to go out on top all along, or how hard was it to grapple with that?
Life is complicated.
Yeah.
Football is even more complicated.
I know.
My life has always been about relationships, right? Who I'm close with, it dictates almost everything that I do.
Yeah.
I was fortunate and blessed to be close with not only Wellington Mara, but also Bob Tisch. I told you, I lived in New York City. I was 15 blocks away from the Regency. So Bob would call me up all the time and say, Teak, we're going to go do this. We're going to go do this event for Governor Pataki, even though he's a Democrat. Mm-hmm. Bob was a Democrat. Mm-hmm. Pataki was a Republican. I was like, why are we doing this? He's like, because he's going to win, right? He's like, come over to Feinstein's. We're going to catch a show. So I had this interaction with these two amazing men. One, a New York institution in a sense, and the other, one of the icons of the National Football League. In 2005, they both got sick, and we knew that they were going to pass away. And Coach Coughlin used to always tell us that we are the team of record for Wellington Mara and Bob Tisch. We are the team of record for Wellington Mara and Bob Tisch. And everything that we do is going to be indicated and indicative of how we thought about them in this specific season, right? And that meant something to me. It wasn't just rhetoric. It wasn't just words meant to inspire. It meant something to me because I was so close to them. And it's not coincidental that was my best year of my career. I rushed for 1,800 yards. I had 500 yards receiving. It was the now third because Chris Johnson passed me.
It's unbelievable.
All-purpose yard season in a season, and it was amazing because it meant something to me.
Yeah.
We went to the playoffs that year, a home wild card playoff game against the Carolina Panthers, and they just beat the dog shit out of us.
I was a Panthers fan.
Yeah, and it was frustrating. It was miserable, and I remember at the end,
it's like 20-6 type score.
The narrative was, we'll get them next year. Don't worry about this one. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean don't worry about this? You just told me for the last 8 months that we are the team of record, that this season means more than any season ever. And I got so frustrated with Coach Coughlin at my press conference after this game, season. I said, we got outcoached in that game. Yeah. We got outplayed, we got outmaneuvered, they wanted it more, etc. And that started this like rift between me and Coach Coughlin. But it also put in my mind, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore. This is after 2005. So 2006 comes. I'm still working out. I'm excited, but I'm all of a sudden doing a bunch of other stuff. So Fox News, which I was working on for 3 years. I go to Israel with Shimon Peres, who invited me to go see his twin sports schools, Palestinian and Israeli kids playing together. I meet Secretary of State Rice. I have lunch with her at the State Department. Like all of these things are just happening It have nothing to do with football.
And you realize there's a life outside football. I think sometimes you're in this
so much more outside.
You're
of
on this
football.
hamster wheel for 20 years of your life.
You're right.
And the fear that creeps into guys' heads is that this is all there is. And like for you, with your personality and your intellect, but I don't think that that's you.
Yeah.
I'm saying most guys also don't get that opportunity to play in a city like this.
Well, that's
to make those connections.
That's a lie, though.
You don't think?
Most guys don't see it.
Yeah.
Right. I've always said, football, any sport, but let's talk about football. Football is amazing because it raises your floor. Right. Before you became an NFL player, you had the choice to be something much less than you could ever be.
Right.
Whether that's doing drugs or doing whatever, or being in jail, or just never really achieving. But once you get into the NFL, your floor goes to here. Mm-hmm. What you do from there is up to you, right? I was fortunate because I was in New York City and I was able to take advantage of a lot of different things, and I saw all these things happening. Most guys are starting to get savvy about it now as well.
They are,
right? Yep. You see guys investing in businesses. You see them talking outside of just being an athlete, and it's just the evolution, I think, of the player. Mm-hmm. But the floor is where you have to start, and where you go from there is imperative.
Absolutely, and I hope that, like, as you're saying, this trend of guys being more complete guys, more Renaissance men in the league, that guys struggle less after football.
Yeah.
Because I think some of it's existential. Obviously, there's head trauma. There's a whole host of issues that we won't get to, but I think some of it is existential, and what's my purpose and who am I? So hopefully you're right.
Well, I think this is a hard one to interpret, and I think you could probably relate to this. Not you specifically, but you know people that are this way. You get taught when you're a great athlete and going to be a professional how to be a great athlete. All the other stuff kind of gets pushed to the wayside. Like, how do you interact with people, right? How do you have a conversation? How are you comfortable in your own skin? So when someone's lauding you with praise and adoring you.
People work around you. You get yes men.
But forget that. But when someone's like lauding you, how does that make you feel? Are you uncomfortable in that? Can you have a conversation when someone's like fawning over you?
I'm uncomfortable.
Most guys can't. Because they've never been taught how to socially interact, right? Yeah. And that's why you see them always on their phones. They're like, they're always on their phone. Like, they can't be in the moment.
Right.
And so it's not that they're rude or they're mean. They don't know how to be a celebrity, right? And so they're uncomfortable being celebrities. It's an insecurity, even though they're great and they're amazing, right? Famously, Ricky Williams was the poster child for this. He did interviews with his helmet on because he couldn't interact that way, and so I think it's a bigger problem than people want to give credence to. But being okay in your skin as a celebrity is not something that comes easy. For some people it does, but not for a lot.
Yeah. Which leads me to my lightning round of questions. Actor you'd want to work with if you had a role?
Denzel, of course.
Yeah. Best Denzel movie.
Maybe he could play my dad.
Best Denzel movie.
Best Denzel? Training Day. I just rewatched it the other day
because awesome.
It was awesome.
He's awesome. I like Flight.
I haven't seen it.
Dude, see it.
All right.
Pretty dark. Player any era that reminds you of yourself at running back.
Tony Dorsett, maybe.
Okay.
Tony Dorsett played at like 185, so he was little. I played at actually 208, 210.
Which relative to the times that works out.
Right, but he was a slasher.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't like a juker guy. He was, I'm going to take an angle, I'm going to cut across your face, you're going to miss the tackle, and I'm going to go.
Yep.
Right? So
I can see it, actually. Yeah. Biggest hit you took?
Toby Wright, my rookie season. Your former team, the Rams. We're in St. Louis. I cut back. I was a cutback runner. I always wanted to cut back. I cut back without looking.
Pain in the ass for defensive ends.
He hit me squarely in my ear hole, and I fumbled, was knocked unconscious. I remember coming back into the game, and I think it was Dave Brown was our quarterback. He called the play, and I was like, wait, what do I do? And he was like, get out of here.
Different times, though.
Oh, man.
Different times. Favorite win?
Favorite win was easy. 2005. Wellington Mara had passed away. We had the funeral at St. Patrick's Cathedral. We went to practice the next day. It was an overcast day, but the sun opened up just over our field, and I told Coach Coughlin, that's Wellington looking down on us. We played the Redskins that next day, or 2 days later, and I rushed for 206 yards in 3 quarters. First play was a 57 or so yard run. In the third quarter, I had a 52-yard run, but I kept getting caught. And Timmy McDonald, who was one of Wellington's grandkids, comes over to me and says, "You gonna score a touchdown? You're gonna keep getting caught." And he called me an old man because I was 30 at the time. And I said, I promise you before this game is over, I'm scoring you a touchdown. Yeah. So right before the end of the third quarter, we called a draw on the 6-yard line. I jumped over Sean Taylor, may he rest in peace, and scored a touchdown, dropped the ball and blew a kiss like I always did. And I remembered, I turned around, picked it up, ran over to Timmy and gave him the football and said, "This is for you and your family and your grandfather. Thank you for making me a giant." And I took myself out of the game.
How many ballots for Eli? Over, under, 1.5. You taking the over?
Over.
The over.
Because of his peers.
Right.
So you think about who was in his era, because that's how it happens. And look, this Hall of Fame process it's annoying to me. The fact my brother's not in yet drives me insane.
Oh, it's criminal.
It's criminal. He's the pioneer of the nickel cornerback in the National Football League as it's played right now. And people don't believe that, go look at the stats. There's his brother, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, Phillip Rivers, Ben, Drew Brees. There's just so many.
It's in the era of offensive explosiveness that it's just hard to.
You're
but
right.
I mean, he's
he
a winner.
Has the 2 Super Bowls, but I'm going to say over. I want to say 2 or 3.
Last question on the quarterback, in the quarterback realm. Best quarterback without a Super Bowl, not named Marino.
Best quarterback without a Super Bowl, not named Marino. Phillip Rivers.
That's my answer too.
It's easy.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's unconventional. He's got a weird release. It's like, how is this guy beating us? And then the next thing you know, he's got 320 and
because he's
3 touchdowns.
Angry. Because he's just
he's
on
awesome.
the field. He takes all that pent-up aggression from all his kids at
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
They're running him ragged. He goes on the field and takes it out on.
I have 6.
I mean, he used to talk shit to D linemen. Phillip Rivers appreciation. So.
And then, you know what sucks? I don't know if he's going to get one.
I know it's tough.
Yeah.
I thought this year they might have a shot, but they ran into a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
New England figured out the running game right at the right time. Tiki, thank you for joining me, man.
Always. My
First
friend.
ever Fishbowl guest.
Does he or she have a name?
Is it a boy or a girl? Anybody know?
See, I put you on the spot.
Fuck it, we'll call it Tiki.
Nice. What's up, Tiki?
I appreciate you, man.
Anytime.
Yeah, great.